Hi, this chapter will cover the muscular system. If you are able to recollect, we looked at three different muscles during the histology lab, and the three muscles were skeletal muscles, which are present in the skeleton and bones, and they help in voluntary movement of the body. And the other type of muscle we looked at was cardiac muscle, which are present in the heart. Cardiac muscles are highly specialized muscles which help in contraction of the heart. And the third type of the muscles we looked at were smooth muscles. Now, smooth muscles were the smooth, non-striated muscles that you looked at when you were observing the tissues through the microscope. So this chapter will cover the overview of muscle tissue and some aspects of muscle physiology. So nearly half the body's mass is made up of muscle, and muscle is capable of transforming chemical energy into mechanical energy. This energy is directed towards exerting force for contraction of the muscles. So in order to understand how the muscles contract, we must first understand the anatomy of the muscles. So this picture over here shows three different types of muscle tissue that we have looked at: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscles. So skeletal muscles attach bones to the skin, and they are packaged into skeletal muscles and organs that are attached to bones and skins. Now, skeletal muscle fibers can also be called muscle cells, but it is more appropriate to call them fibers because they are the longest of all muscles and they are fused, and they also have striations that you're seeing over here, and that's why we call them striated muscles. Now, the skeletal muscles are voluntary muscles, and we can consciously control these muscles. So this chapter will cover the anatomy of these muscles in a lot more detail later on. The next type of muscle you looked at while looking at histology was cardiac muscles. Now, cardiac muscles are highly specialized muscles which are present in the wall of the heart and only in the heart. So these types of muscles build bulk of the heart walls, and these muscles are also called striations because of the lines that you see while you observe it under the microscope. Now the cardiac muscles, on the other hand, are involuntary and cannot be consciously controlled. Now, the muscles contract at a steady rate due to the presence of a pacemaker, but the nervous system can increase or decrease the heart rate. Now, the last type of muscle, which is smooth muscles, are non-striated because you don't see any striations when you observe them under the microscope. They look really, really smooth. So these muscles can also be called non-striated smooth muscles. These muscles are found in the walls of organs that are hollow, like the stomach, the urinary bladder, and the airways. And they cannot be consciously controlled. So these muscles are involuntary. Now, these muscles can also contract on its own without the stimulation of the nervous system. All muscles share certain characteristics like excitability, conductivity, contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Now, all muscles are excitable, meaning they're able to receive and respond to an external stimulus. So we call this responsiveness. And all muscles are conductive, meaning they're able to conduct cell-to-cell excitation and the electrical waves from one muscle to the other. And they are able to contract, meaning they're able to shorten to create movement. And they are extensible, meaning they are able to be stretched to create a contraction. And all different types of muscles, they're elastic. So elasticity is the ability to recoil. So once a muscle has relaxed, it should be able to contract, and when it's contracted, it should be able to relax. So all muscles are elastic, are able to recoil to the resting length. So let's focus on the anatomy of the skeletal muscle as an example. Skeletal muscle is voluntary, striated, and they are attached to at least one bone in the body. The muscle cell is also called a muscle fiber or a myofiber. Myo means muscle. So you'll see a lot of terminologies in this chapter which start with the term myo or sarco. So these are both prefixes used for muscle tissue. So the muscle tissue is about 3 to 30 centimeter in length, and they are multinucleated. If you remember the structure of the muscle tissue, they are multinucleated because they are fused to form long fibers. So these fibers are multinucleated muscle tissue. So these lines that you're seeing in this picture of a muscle fiber are known as striations, and striations are alternating light and dark bands that result from arrangement of contractile proteins in a muscle fiber. And the skeletal muscles are under voluntary control because we are consciously able to control the movement or contraction of muscle if we want from, say, one corner of the room to the other. So a muscle cell is also called, so this over here is a muscle cell, and we can call it a muscle fiber, and they can be as long as 30 centimeters. Now, the muscle has 3 layers of connective tissue wrapping. You have the endomysium, perimysium, and the epimysium. We'll look at this in a little more detail later. And tendons are attachments between muscles and bone, and they're continuous bands of collagen fibers, which are somewhat extensible and elastic. So this over here is the endomysium, which is the connective tissue around a muscle cell. So the tendon anchors the bone to the muscle, and it's a band of fibrous connective tissue made of collagen. And the tendon is somewhat continuous with the outer layer of the muscle, which is called the epimysium or the epimysium. Now, underneath the epimysium, there is a layer known as the perimysium, and perimysium is the layer of connective tissue that covers a bundle of muscles that sits right here, and there's a bunch of them, and each bundle is called a fascicle. So this is a fascicle, this over here is a fascicle, this over here is a fascicle, and this fascicle right over here is exposed, right? So this is a perimysium that covers a bundle of fascicles. Now each bundle, we call it a fascicle. And inside a fascicle, you see a number of individual muscle fibers. And each of this muscle fiber is wrapped around with another layer of connective tissue known as the endomysium. So right over here is a muscle fiber wrapped by endomysium.